It's Saturday morning. It's 9 o'clock. It's time for the Monster Magic Saturday Show. Let's do this.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning. Feel the sun shining for your eyes.
Woohoo! Good morning, everybody. What a glorious day it is outside. What a beautiful start to the weekend. No excuses really for slipping on a pair of trainers and going out for that 5k run to shift that bit of timber you've built up over the winter months. Unless, of course, you've got a magic review show to watch, which is ideally done from bed with a bacon sarnie and a mug of tea. And first up, we've got Linking Bands by Fernando Moreno. Rubber band magic is just huge. It's a very good everyday carry. You've just got to put some elastic bands around your wrist. You'll see a lot of professional magicians even have the colourful Joe Rhineflish bands around their wrists, which you can perform many, many miracles at the drop of a hat. These are gimmicked elastic bands. So what Fernando has done is created a rubber band gimmick to enable you to perform a linking effect, very similar to the linking rings. Basically, you show that you've got these 3 elastic bands, similar to the sort of thing you might find in the stationery cupboard at work. And you can give them a tug to prove that they're all legit. You can then link them into a nice chain that can be shown very, very cleanly, and then unlink them once again and give them a tug to prove that they're all the same. They cannot be examined because, well, 2 of them can, 1 of them can't. You've sort of got like a key ring kind of effect going on here. It's very similar to the linking rings in many ways, and I'm not a big linking rings fan. I've got a slight problem with that routine. It bugs me because you always seem to be running away. You always seem to be being chased by the audience and hiding the gimmick that it actually is. What you get in here, let me show you. So these are the bands. So this is the spare regular bands that you get. So you get, how many of these do you get? So you get 3 spare regular bands. This is the size, which is a good size to show that they've all linked together in a nice chain. You're going to put them around your wrist. You're going to have to double them up. Might be a bit tight. So they're probably going to be in your pocket rather than on your wrist. You also get 1 spare gimmick band, and you get the performing set, which is 2 regular bands and the gimmick band. The gimmick is very well made. It is well hidden, kind of hides in plain sight. You can still give it a tug to prove that it's legit and so on, and then you can perform what is essentially a linking rings routine. And the routine is really well taught by Fernando. He gives a little bit of a history. It's a 50-minute tutorial, lots of angles. He actually has the gimmick. He sort of colours the areas that you need to be watching in 2 different colours, so you sort of get the handling really cleanly, over the head shots, close-ups, all the various different moves you can do, the crash links and so on. And you can see that Fernando is very passionate about this little routine. The gimmick band itself is well made. It is strong. It's not going to sort of break on you in any way, although Fernando does go through the care of it to make sure everything stays as perfect. The actual gimmick bit of it isn't quite invisible, so you do need to be conscious of where it is. The strength of this routine really relies on the cleanliness of the displays, and they can be really, really clean and open. The problem is that brings its own issues, really. So the fact that you've got a gimmick involved means that these can't be handed out and inspected unless you want to do some switching around. If you do the linking rings, you've probably got little methods for that, but that's a bit of a shame. And also, I just find the routine just that little bit sort of pedestrian and a bit drab, dated, possibly. Ever since Joe Rhineflish brought out his elastic bands and his work on the elastic bands, there are some really nice visual movements. You can do transpositions, you can do color changes, you can do penetrations, and you can do linking bands as well using just sleight of hand. I know some people in the Magic Club and the Magic Circle who do some wonderful things with real elastic bands. You can create the effect of snapping them and putting them back together, all done with elastic bands that aren't gimmicked. So for me, I just find this all just a little bit underwhelming, a little bit boring, and a little bit what you'd expect you know, ever since Elastrix came out and so on, there's just so much material and options out there for rubber band magic. If you're willing to learn a few sleights, a few sort of finger holds and twists and things like that, that are just wonderful and a lot of fun to perform, and much more enjoyable to watch than this. It's a real shame, because you can see that Fernando has put a lot of care into this. You get a lot of the spare gimmicks and things like that. He really clearly does want you to perform it, and he really believes in it. But it just lacks the convenience of the everyday carry of having genuine bands around your wrist. It lacks the sort of the visuals as well, and they can't be examined. It's just too limiting. I sort of think if it had come out about 30 or 40 years ago, it would be great. But magic with rubber bands has just moved on far too much, with the work of even what Sam Hwang's doing now with his Crazy Sam's Minds and so on. There's just a lot more out there that is so much better, that is ungimmicked. That is Linking Bands by Fernando Moreno, 33.99. Next up, it's Pocket Roulette by Yannick, Barth and Geraint Clarke. I'm not sure how well I've done at pronouncing those names. I wonder if this is it's another card trick by Illusionist, similar to Single-Handed, that came out, that uses sort of gimmicks that we've all seen before, but in a slightly novel way, to using or presented in a really engaging way. I don't know if that's the sort of trend that illusionists are going down, but it's really kind of interesting. So the effect you've got here is that you hand your participants 5 cards, and they peek at one of them. They then give them a shuffle, put them in their pocket, and then you bet them that they can't bring out the card that they've just selected first time. They have a go, they bring it out, it's the wrong card. You then go, well, I'll give you slightly less money if you can do it the next time, and so on until they've tried to produce their card. They can't. They go back for the 5th and final card, and it's vanished, and that card then appears anywhere that you like. It is a great plot. It is a really, really good plot. It is fun, it is engaging, and you can have a lot of fun with it. I don't think they emphasised enough on the video the idea that you can have the other. If you do it the first time, you get £50. They fail. Do it a second time, I'll give you £40. They fail, 30, and so on. And last time you go, well, if you do it this time, you know, if you can't do it this time, you've got to buy me a drink. And they can't do it, and their card can end up anywhere you like. The tutorial features Geraint and Yannick together. They're a great combo. They're easy to watch. They're having a lot of fun. There's lots of smiles. It is a lovely little sort of tutorial to watch, and full of great thinking, deep thinking, really. You're watching 2 pros who've really worked this and figured out everything that you need to know to perform it, and they cover a lot of ground. The effect itself actually uses so you get in here, you get I can't really show you them, they're bicycle red-backed cards, and you get 6 of them. They're different values, so you can perform it 12 times, in fact, if you like, with different values. So it's easily repeatable for different audiences, or the same audience rather, if you wish. And you just use one of these at a time. So if you lose one or whatever, you've got spares, if that's the way you want to think about it. And the gimmicks do pretty much most of the work for you. The one sleight in the standard routine is a false count, which you can really make a big deal of if you want, but to be honest, you can pretty much just push off 4 cards and tell them you're handing them 5 and get them to have a peek at one of them. Don't make a big deal out of this false count. The one that Geraint Clarke uses is by Antonio Bourgeois, I think. There's a book called by Franco Pasquali and Antonio Bourgeois called Vital. It's in there, but you don't need to use that false count at all. Any false count you like, or just pull them back when you square one up, or all the different methods are taught by Geraint. So use whichever one you like, but as he says, just do it casually. You know, don't overprove anything is not necessary. And pretty much once the cards are in their pocket, your work is done. It's impossible for them to pull out the card that they selected. A little bit of audience management, possibly, in making sure that they bring them out face down for a little bit of drama, as well as a method. But really, it is super, super easy. You can have their missing card pretty much appear anywhere you like. You can preload it ahead of time if you wish. And there is a nice chapter on body loading where G and Yannick and one of their other helpers whose name I've forgotten, they run through. So if you've got a helper as well, they could be doing the load as you're talking to your participant, or you can just do it well in advance if you're with friends or family and so on. Or you can do it with a version with a Himba wallet, which is how Yannick often performs it. So you take your money that you're going to gamble with out of your wallet, and the card appears inside the wallet. That's really nice. And if you're worried about doing any of the other loads or putting it on someone's chair for them to sit on and so on, then that is possibly the way to go. They also teach a non-gaffed version, if you like, which is nice, involves a pretty easy sleight, and it's probably well worth learning if you like the plot and don't have the gimmicks on you. I think that's a great little addition. There's also a bonus section with a bonus sort of 5-card poker draw routine, which is fine. And then there's a jam session at the end where, they sort of run through all of the opportunistic places that they found themselves in and situations that they found themselves in and how they've performed it in those environments, which is really nice and gives you some sort of depth and feeling about how pros think and how these routines develop, and hopefully will encourage you to just have some fun with your magic. It's a really fun, playful plot. Gambling is a great hook. You get some money out on the table, which always grabs people's attention, and it feels quite like an easy game that they're going to win some money. And then the surprise, the denouement, the climax of the trick is a real shocker. I really like it. I think it's a very, very clever use of these gimmicks. That's what you're paying for. It is purely the plot and the presentation, although you do get 6 gimmicks, which is really, really good as well. And the tutorial is excellent and covers everything you need to know. That is Pocket Roulette, $27.99. Next up, we've got the Fusion deck by Patrick Redford. This is a combination of 2 very well-known decks that have been around for over 100 years. It's a combination basically of a Svengali deck and a stripper deck. And Patrick came up with this in order to perform his trick of A Magician Goes Fishing, where you play a game of Go Fish, basically. And it's sort of similar to a poker deal, in that you have 2 hands of cards, you play Go Fish, and you pass this ring between yourself and your participant, and that gives you the luck. And so you sort of control who wins at each time, or who gets the right cards, or who has to go fish. And then at the end, there's a nice climax where they get to choose the matching card from a whole pile of cards on the table. That Go Fish routine is very, very nice indeed. And I think Go Fish is reasonably popular. There's something about poker deals that is a bit tricky often, with people knowing the hierarchy of the hands. And if someone isn't really into poker or card games, certainly in the UK, they don't really understand a poker deal per se, or the order of the hands. Go Fish is something that every parent has probably played with their child. So it's nice, and it's kind of clear, and it's easy to explain the rules if need be anyway. And it's got a nice ending to it. So with this routine, when you have a pile of cards on the table and they pick up the matching card to the one card they've got in their hand, that is definitely a climax and brings the routine to an end, as opposed to some poker deals that just sort of peter out because you've run out of cards. The idea of combining the Svengali and the stripper isn't new. Joe Stuthard had the idea in 1949, but his was slightly different in construction. So Patrick has sort of kept a more, how to explain it, stripper style cut to the cards rather than what Joe did, and that creates some nice little table spread displays. I think that is what is nice about this deck, is if you're doing table work, it is great. The indifferent cards that you get here as well are also very important for the go fish routine. And I kind of find it a misnomer. So the fusion deck, although that is what it is, creates this idea that it is a utility deck, and I think it could be. I hope it becomes that. But it is perfect for the magician goes fishing routine that Patrick does, and for some nice displays. And so on, being able to sort of have the cards freely shuffled and mixed by the spectator, and you can then sort them out for the go fishing routine. And yeah, I mean, it's great for that. Unfortunately, I can't help but think by fusing the two decks together, it's become more limited, and not so much, and sort of less by the sum of its parts. You know, I sort of feel if you asset stripped it, you'd be better off with the two different decks. Patrick does teach two other routines on the tutorial, one of which I think you'd just be better off with an ordinary Svengali, and the other one you'd be better off using a normal stripper deck. And because of the combination of cards, you sort of lose some of the advantages of each deck. So you can't overhand shuffle it as you can as Svengali, and because you've got a bank of duplicates in the deck, that sort of limits the stripper style effects you can do with it. So to be honest, I haven't managed to think up a routine that this deck is better for, other than the one Patrick designed it for. Certainly on paper it sounds like it should be really versatile, but in practice I've found it pretty limiting. The deck is well made and constructed from bicycle rider back cards. You will find that the borders aren't quite even on either side, but that's fine. That's just part of the parcel of the deck and will fly past any layperson, and it handles really well, as you'd expect. The tutorial by Patrick is really well done, and it's nicely split into chapters. So you've got how to use the stripper properties, how to do the displays, how to do the card spreads, how to shuffle the deck. Everything is taught. For me, this deck is all about that magician's goes fishing routine, which I do think is very good. Again, the deck's not examinable, obviously, but you do get some nice displays, and Patrick does do table work, and the table spreads are very nice and easy to do and very clean looking, and I'd happily recommend it for that routine alone. That is the Fusion deck by Patrick Redford, $25.99. Next up, it's Mind Entanglement by Storm Creative. This is basically an ESP matching routine, but instead of symbols, you have pictures of famous holiday locations, glamorous holiday locations, I would say. You have a set of 5, your participant has a set of 5, and you deal them down one at a time in a row, and when you turn them over, they all match. Matching pairs of cards and ESP symbols has been around for a very long time, certainly around the 1940s, probably popularized certainly with ESP symbols by Han Fletch in 1955 with Symbologic, which is still a great routine, and I believe it's still available. It is well worth knowing. It is a really powerful routine, and I don't think its plot's been that developed since, but you can also check out the work of Larry Becker, or even Mark Leveridge has a nice one called ESP Match Plus. A lot of them use extra cards these days, or a gimmick card. I won't go into too many details. This doesn't use any extra cards. You are just using the 10 cards on show, and there is a move that's quite bold that he uses that gets over the use of an extra card. There are other ways of achieving what he does if you're not happy with the move he uses, but it's motivated by gesture, and because you've only got a few cards in your hand, it's pretty easy to do and should fly by if you get your timing correct. The rest of the method is sort of fairly standard these days. It's sort of like a one behind principle. The tutorial is a whopping 50 minutes long, which is quite a lot for an ESP matching routine, really. It covers really from basic to advanced handlings. It starts off with a very simple routine, basic routine, where the participant puts their card down first and you put down a card. And that's very, very easy. In the second routine, you put your cards down first, and then your participant puts down theirs. That is obviously much more powerful than them going first, because you can't possibly know what card they're going to put down, and it's as if they are matching to you rather than the other way round. That is where the idea of having to do this little move at the end to get your cards in the right order to match comes in. But it's a nice, simple routine and pretty easy to do. And then you get into the advanced handlings, which is the real value of this project for me. They have obviously been working with these cards for a very long time, and what happens is that you can take advantage of certain scenarios, or any scenario actually, to make the effect more powerful. So for example, you might end up with you and your participant having matching cards at the end. The two of these might match, so you can literally just show them like this, and then go back to the other three cards on the table, if you see what I mean. So you can create these much more powerful moments if you learn all of the variations and all of the scenarios that can crop up. And that is where the hard work comes in, but you sort of learn them progressively. So I would start with just a 2-card scenario at the end, and then the 3-card scenario sort of follows on quite logically from that, and the 4th card scenario again is just like a further extension. But the better at it you get, the more freedom it will feel your participants have got, and the more amazing this will become, and makes it such a strong routine. The pictures are really nice and colourful, and are probably nicer and brighter to look at than the usual ESP symbols that you'd get. They did bring out a trick called Impossible a few years ago, and this is very closely linked to that trick, but that was ESP symbols, and this is kind of nicer, and perhaps there is more of a hook, and they are nicer to look at. The real problem with all of this, of course, is that these cards are marked, and they're marked very subtly. It's not the fact that they're subtle, it's just that the marking is sort of so small that it is really, really hard to see. I can't see it at a distance of across the table. So to be honest, the proximity that the card has to be next to me. I need my glasses anyway, so I need to put my glasses on to see them close up. And at a distance, I haven't got a hope in hell. The other thing you have to learn is, because with ESP symbols, there's a logical way of turning a circle into a number. You know, a square's 4 because it's got 4 sides, etc. You don't have that with these. So it's more memory based on what marking relates to which picture. So that's a little bit of added work there as well. But the markings for me make this nigh on impossible to perform. Unfortunately, there's no real reason for that. I don't know why they haven't gone for a sort of cleverer, bolder method. I mean, I've got the whole border to play with. There's a lot on the back of this card to play with in order to come up with a much better marking system. So that's a real shame. And these have got a one-way back design, which is a nice idea, so that you know the orientation of the card, so that you can always display it, so they're always both the right way up, which just looks a little bit more professional and makes it obvious that they are the same image. But actually, I'm not sure whether I would remark these myself, or I would just buy a set of better, clearer marked ESP cards and learn all of the handlings that are taught on here. So perhaps I might be willing to discard these cards, use ordinary ESP cards, you know, sort of like the naked ESP cards or the Zener ESP cards by Michael Murray instead, and then perform the trick like that. You also get a nice wallet and a envelope as well, a gimmicked envelope in fact, and that's for a bonus routine should you want to do it. But to be honest, I think this is the routine, the ESP matching style routine is the one you're going to want to be doing. This is a nice little add-in. It's something to keep the cards in, which is nice. It's not, I don't know, it's not the, it's a nice wallet. It's a nice wallet. I don't think, is that leather? Might be, it might be, but it's a good, strong, it's well made. If you practice and you learn all of the scenarios and the handlings for each outcome. You will have a real powerhouse of an ESP matching routine. You will blow people away. So I would be prepared to invest in another set of marked ESP cards. That is Mind Entanglement by Storm Creative, $24.99. And next up, we've got the jumbo version of Mind Entanglement by Storm Creative. Yes, here we have. Oh, now what they've done here, as you can see, the cards are printed on jumbo size cards, and they're designed to look like postcards on the back. The routine is fairly similar in the stand-up way. You probably need a table, and your participant has 5 cards. You have 5 cards. They put their card down first. You then put your card down. You still need to do the same sleight as in the basic routine on the close-up version. That is covered with a little bit of a body turn and so on, which you can motivate and which is taught in a little bit of detail. This isn't as complicated as it's only got a 20-minute tutorial as opposed to the 50-minute tutorial. Doesn't run through all of the various scenarios. It only runs through what to do if you've ended up with the 2 matching cards at the end, to create a bit of drama as the 2 of you both lift up your cards. But the rest of the routine is very similar to just the basic routine of the mini version. This is a really nice addition. It's very nice for traveling in, for keeping the postcards in good nick, but it's also a nice display. If you've got a little prop to hold this up, you can insert your cards in here to display that they have matched, and it takes them off the table as well. So that's a nice touch. But the best bit is, because of this back design, they've made it look like these are very big postcards. The markings are much better. It's not that they're bigger, it's just that the markings are clearer and better, but just as well hidden. And also because no one's really looking for marks, you've only got 5 cards, it's very hard for anyone to see that there's any difference anyway, unless you really know what you're looking for. But this marking system is just better. It's not that the cards are bigger, it's not that the marks are bigger, it's just a better, clearer marking system. Why they didn't do the same thing on the smaller cards, I don't know. I really don't know. The stage version really does benefit from having the images as well for me, rather than the ESP symbols. They are much more colourful. They are much more interesting. And, you know, you can engage your participant in whether they've been to these places or not, or even whether they recognise them. Although the tutorial is much shorter, it is still well taught. And the props are really well made. Both the tutorials for Mind Entanglement are in Chinese with English subtitles. That does at times make it quite tricky to see and understand what's going on, so you might be rewinding a fair bit. They do actually in the tutorials mark the cards very boldly with coloured dots, so you can see when they're matching and when they're not matching and exactly what's going on. So that's nice. I just wish they'd used the same back design on the close-up version. That is Jumbo Mind Entanglement by Storm Creative, $34.99. And now it's time for a blast from the past. It's Word in a Million by Nick Einhorn and Mark Mason. I love this. This was probably the first book test I ever bought because it can use any hardback book. It is a gimmick that you put in to the book, but it's really, really well hidden, and your participant can choose absolutely any word. What happens is basically you hand your participant a book, they flip through, they see that it's a genuine book, they can then choose any word from that book. You put a post-it note on the back of the book and they write the word down on that. They then take that off, so they use that for confirmation. You then take the book back, you show again that it's a genuine book, they could have picked any word, and you then tell them what their word is great. Everything about it is motivated, and I got to watch the tutorial again after many years. I think this first came out in the early 2000s. It was in sort of out of production for a while, and then I think perhaps Nick stopped making it and Mark Mason started making it. But Mark's got a nice little touch of sort of tapping the book with his finger and so on to add even more motivation for when you're doing your little bit of sneaky work. It's very clever. It's actually based on an old Al-Quran trick, which I think was called One Word in 1,000 or Word in 1,000, which is in his book The Magic of Al-Quran from 1983. This uses a much more updated, modern gimmick, and it is super versatile. Like I say, you can switch it from one book to another. Any book you think might relate to your participant or something in your show is fine. And it's a great little device that even if it's not for a book test, you might want to use and transfer into other things and use your imagination with. It's pretty low tech, which is another benefit, I think, from some of the other things that have come out. So you don't have to worry about which pen or pencil or anything else that the person's using. Personally, I tend to use like a little golf pen or pencil. For me, that gives a slightly better result. But Mark Mason says you can use the Sharpie. You just need to encourage your participant to write legibly so that they can genuinely prove that that is the word that they've thought of. It is a really strong effect. You can build it up as much as you like. Once you know their word, you can obviously drop hints and do some mentalism performance of I think it's a big thing, I think it's colourful, however you want to play it. You can milk it as much as you like, but it is very easy to do, and it is absolutely a snip, in my opinion, at $15.99. That is Word in a Million by Nick Einhorn.
Hey, you old fool! You slept through the show! Who's a fool? You watched it!
And that's it for this week's show, I'm afraid. But tomorrow is the Magic Circle convention where Monster Magic will be having a stand. But if you're not going to be there, then don't worry, because the weather is absolutely terrific. And I don't think you've got any excuse for not grabbing some magic and going out there and having some fun with the best hobby in the world. Bye-bye.